It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to Divas That Care. My name is Candace Gish. If this is your very first time tuning into us, a huge welcome. The Divas That Care is now in its 13th year, and we're listening to in over 30 countries around the world. And honestly, it's because of all of our amazing tribe, our hosts, our guests, everyone involved with the Divas That Care. So we're so excited that you've joined us today. Well, Sandra Baum. And I am so excited because I had the opportunity to go through her website here, and she wrote an amazing book, and I can't wait to learn more about it. So Sandra, welcome to the Divas That Care.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you. I can't wait to learn more about you and everything that you're doing. Sandra, would you mind kind of introducing yourself to our listeners today?
Sure. I am a native of St. Louis, Missouri. I left St. Louis when I was 17 and went away to college and lived a few years in Indiana, but the bulk of my life was spent in Texas, in El Paso specifically, living on the border of Mexico for 25 years. I started my career in higher education and spent 17 years in higher education. I was very successful in higher ed and reached the position of associate vice provost at a major Texas university and had what I would just call, the only thing I could describe it as a spiritual experience where it was very clear to me that God wanted me to shift. And I talk about it in my book, An Angel for Detroit, and I describe all of these instances throughout my life where I've learned to listen to what God is trying to show me or tell me regarding my purpose and where I'm supposed to be. And so I left higher education and began leading a very large nonprofit, which at that time was the largest YWCA in the country. And I did that for 10 years. And there was another really phenomenal experience that showed me that I was supposed to take on this position that I currently have, where I've been the CEO of an even larger, very large Jewish Human Services agency. So it's been a great career, but a career of shifts that have come on the heel of me trying to find my purpose and trying to follow the path that I believe God wants me to be on. I'm married. I have 3 adult children and 2 grandbabies, and I live in Florida now.
I love that. That's so inspiring. And all the good that you're doing is absolutely amazing. I'm just inspired just by listening to you, all that you've done. That's absolutely huge. And you just wrote a book recently. Is this your very first book that you wrote?
Yes. Of course, I did my dissertation, which was a book of its own, but not the same sort of effort. That was for professional purposes. And this was really a personal quest that I've had since I was 17. I spent a couple of years in foster care because my mom had schizophrenia. And when things changed and we could no longer force her to go to the hospital for help, she basically began to just walk the streets, and there was nothing we could do. And anyway, I ended up in foster care for a couple of years. And when I was emancipated from foster care, when I basically left on my 17th birthday, I said I was waiting for my counselor in my high school office and just sitting there in tears, not knowing where I was going to go because I had no place and still 6 months of school left. And so I basically said, I'm going to write a book about my life. But just like I talked about listening to these voices that we hear, Women, oftentimes we have this gut instinct and we don't pay attention to it. Well, I've learned to pay attention to that. But just as I heard a voice that told me to leave higher ed, it was a similar voice that said, you're too young right now to write a book. And I vowed to do it when I was older and when the time was right. And so I spent my life really thinking about this book, but it's my memoir, and it really came together just based on all of the events that I've had in my life. People say, God, Sandra, become so successful after, such a tumultuous childhood. And a lot of that had to do, the bulk of it with faith. And so I often say that my book is a book about grace, because if you're the recipient of grace, then you realize how blessed you are and how you are never alone. But others who've read the book have said it's a book about faith. And so I think it's a wonderful book that takes you through my life, through all of the ups and downs and twists and turns of living, with a mom who had schizophrenia and all the adventures that led to, from moving around the city and the country on these quests where she was convinced, that she was supposed to be there for reasons that I won't get into because they're in the book and I don't want to give any spoilers. But basically, it's a book that takes people through just tremendous success, but tremendous challenge through whether they were professional, personal. So there's something there for everyone, whether it's mental health, foster care, dreaming, hope, love, forgiveness, all of those things I think that it takes to really have a healthy self-esteem and to be strong in who you are and the purpose that has been placed on your life.
Wow. I'm so honored that you are sharing this on my podcast today. This is just amazing. I honestly can't wait to go and check it out and go read this, because it's just something that I can feel it in my heart that I want to read.
So also, just in thinking about so many things, so many stories, it's like, where do you want to begin? One of the things that I will also say about myself is I'm a dreamer. Not like dreaming like, oh, what's my future going to hold? But I dream dreams, and I've always tried to understand, what's behind dreams. And so I've done a lot of work in trying to understand the meaning of dreams, how dreams, how they reflect in real life. Some of our greatest problems that we have, challenges that we have, you go to bed with this on your mind. And if you can find, if you are a dreamer and you can find a way to connect those things, I've gotten many solutions to big challenges on the job, through dreams sometime, where, it's so solutions cool. Come to you.
I never thought of it that way, that you can really take something from your dreams. And I've heard that in the past, that some people have come on the program and they've mentioned that. But I love how that's really been a part of your journey.
I'll give you one short example, and I'll keep it short so we can keep the conversation moving. But I once had to make a decision about a manager of a program that I was overseeing. And I had gotten feedback that that would not be the best decision to put the person who was next in line in that manager's position. And I thought, well, gosh, how do I not give that person the opportunity? They've been here for this long and they've been in this position for this long. And I was very troubled by it. But I had written three grants, and I could no longer myself oversee another one. And so I had to find someone to lead one of those programs. So I went to bed and I had this dream. I dream a lot about storms. And in this case, I dreamt of a tornado coming, and I grabbed my 3 children because we were on a single story. There was no basement, and so we couldn't run to the basement, but I decided to grab them, hold them close, and I nestled myself in the frame of the house, like braced my legs under this archway that I knew was one of the major pillars and the frame of the home. And the storm came, it passed, and we were safe, and that was the dream. And while I was sitting at my office the next day at work, and I was just thinking about this problem that I needed to resolve, I needed someone to be a director of this program. And as I'm sitting at my desk, I looked on my bookshelf, and there were 3 binders. And each of those binders was the grant that I had written for each of those programs that I was overseeing. And it hit me in that moment that the grant itself is the foundation of the program. And when you need answers, you go to the foundation. And so I grabbed the book, the one that had the grant application for the position that I needed to fill, and I opened it up, and there it was, as clear as day in black and white, that the director had to have certain credentials and certain experience and so many years of experience. And the individual that I was concerned about promoting didn't have that experience. And it gave me the comfort to advertise the position broadly, to hire, externally for that position. But that's how, I came to that conclusion. Isn't that interesting?
That is so cool. Yes. Oh, my gosh.
But you have to pay attention. You have to have your mind and your heart in a space where you're like, oh, it wasn't just a crazy dream. But you study it and you try to understand what the point is. And then if you're thoughtful in these spaces where you're going, then you'll see signs, that point to, like I saw the 3 books there on the shelf and realized that was the foundation, for the program.
Well, and I like how you said, too, that a lot of the gut instinct, and I felt that in my life, too. There's been certain times in my life that it's that gut instinct, and it led me to a wrong place. And there's been a few times that I wasn't listening and paying attention, and that's the only times that things didn't work out the way that they were supposed to work out. So I really love that you're sharing that, because I think more people maybe need to be a little bit more aware of that.
Yeah, I just don't think that I don't live my life in coincidences. I've learned to trust my gut instinct, and I've learned to connect the dots when you meet people. You hear people say, oh, it was a divine meeting, and it's like that meeting happened at the right time, at the right place, with the right person, and it was not expected. So you say, wow, here I am just going about my life, and I meet this person that I need to meet who has answers to this or who can help me with that. But you've got to be willing and open to talking to people and honestly trying to see what's in their heart, what their needs are. And I think we spend so much time in relationships rushing through things. I've got to get here, I've got to get there. We don't take the time to listen and to pay attention, to look people in the eye and to try to see, their heart. And so I think when you can do that, it really, you have what some may call coincidences. Oh, what a coincidence that I ran into this person. Not a coincidence. I don't see it that way. It's purposeful.
So, Sandra, can I ask you why you decided to write the book now?
So, interestingly enough, I guess once I became, the first CEO of this large nonprofit, not the first CEO, but my first role as a CEO of a large nonprofit, I figured, okay, I've reached success, and it's really time for me to write this book. And by that time, I don't even know how old I was, maybe, how old am I now? I'm not going to tell you, but maybe I was 40. And so I set out to begin writing the book, and a friend gave me the keys to her place in the mountains, and I went and spent 4.5 days by myself on 70 acres of land, just writing. I got a draft, and I gave it to several people to read. It was about 75 pages at that time. And I got feedback from a historian, and it was the most tremendous feedback, but it sent me on a journey to research my family history, because there were gaps that, I wrote when I was doing this sort of busy writing. I just wrote, but there were lots of gaps in there. And going back and researching the family history and being able to interview my aunts and uncles who were still alive to fill in those gaps and to help them match with Ancestry.com, which I became addicted to, really became this labor of love that I had to get right. And I really felt, sometimes people write a book and they say, oh, I wrote this book in a weekend. Oh, I wrote this book in a month. Well, it took me 15 years to write this book, because I was still married with little children. I was moving across the country here and there, and I needed to basically, take my time and do it right. So I always said, the book will be finished in God's time. When it is time, it will be time. Amen. And so I didn't punish myself that I couldn't write every weekend. There were times when I could write every day, and then there was times when I would go for 6 months without picking it up. But in that time, so much changed, so much evolved, and my life and the book became richer in these experiences, to be able to show how, when you really believe and depend on from this faith perspective, these examples come. And so the longer it took me to finish the book, the more of these examples came forward. And so it's really a testimony of just the grace that has occurred throughout my life, through people who have come, angels, experiences, people that I've just met randomly who sowed seeds into my life that changed my life. And I think people needed to see this type of hope, that no matter how difficult your upbringing, no matter how hungry you are, how poor you are, you're in foster care, your mom has schizophrenia, you're on public assistance, you're being bullied at school, all of these challenges, through all of that, you keep, hope, you keep doing the right thing, and the right people come into your life and they help you soar. And so this book really is about not just telling my story, but I'm hopeful that by reading the book, people will find this faith, or at least become introduced to what that looks like and what that feels like. And they will begin to explore what it means to have a greater relationship, between your heart and God.
Oh my gosh. Sandra, I'm just blown away by you right now. I'm just so happy that you are my guest today, because this is exactly what I needed to hear in my life right now. And I can't wait to share this with all of our tribe and all the people around the world, because everything that you just said is so true and so needed. This world needs more of that. And I want to thank you so much for just taking the time just to chat with me and share just a little bit about your life and about this amazing journey and this amazing book. Would you mind, maybe, I know that we have a few minutes here, I just want to say if there's some last minute things that you can share with our listeners, maybe to help them through their day too today.
Thank you so much. I think, as I think about, rough days, this is a weekend, everyone's getting ready for the weekend, but sometimes, you get ready for the weekend and it's not necessarily a good weekend. But I just think if, people just pause for a moment, take a walk outside, step outside and sit on the back porch or walk around the corner from your office, but just realize that life surrounds us. And it's everywhere. If you look around, you listen, you see the birds, you see ducks, You hear cars going by. You hear planes overhead. It's just this moment of silence that we take to help you realize how beautiful life is, because there's so much in this speedy world that we live in right now, where we're running. Just pausing to take a breath of nature will shift how you're feeling and will give you some perspective that there is just more to it than the rat race that we're running, and that we need to just slow down and appreciate silence sometimes.
I love that. That is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Sandra, how can they go and pick up your book so that they can go check out An Angel for Detroit?
Yes, An Angel for Detroit. It is available everywhere that books are sold, online through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Tumblr Books, any bookstore. You can search my name, Sandra Braham, Braham, and you can find the book that way as well as our website at Now Press. If you go to nowpress.com, you will also find all of the books that have been published by now, including mine.
An Angel for Detroit. Okay, and I'm going to be posting that for all of our listeners. I will be posting a link to our website and all of our social media because I really want you to check that out. Oh, Sandra, thank you so much for coming on to today's program. Honestly, I would love for you to come on again, not just to talk about your book, but everything else you're doing. I just think it's absolutely fantastic, and I think our listeners would love to learn even more about that, too.
Thank you so much. I would love to anytime. It's been great chatting with you and being on Divas That Care. Look forward to visiting with you again, Candace.
And a huge shout-out to all of our listeners. As I said, I'm going to be posting all of Sandra's information on all of our social media. Please check it out. Go support her. See everything that she's doing. It's just absolutely fantastic when you have amazing divas like Sandra. And what a journey that she's had. I want you to go and support her in any way that you can, and make sure that you take this podcast and send it to your friends and family also. Make sure you like and comment on it, because that supports Sandra also with getting her book out there. So again, thank you, Sandra. Thank you to all of our listeners. And please remember to do something kind today. Until next time, everyone.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.